one thing is being aware here and now. What is now possible? Like playing chess, there's now a possibility that you will not have in a minute later. And the other part is the North Light. So what is the main purpose of you or your company that you are striving for? Not a plan, not like a strict plan, but more like this is the vision where you want to go, but you're acting here now. And if you can differentiate that, having this Northern Star and being here now, that helps to go through crisis. Improvising, you go on stage and you have no clue what happens. So you ask the audience, tell me a word, and then we say thank you, the light goes off, it goes on, and you start playing, and you create a theater piece that you do not know in that very moment, and it can change in every second.
Did you expect the speaker who speaks? Did you expect slides? Do you think that because you experienced project management the last 5 years, the next 5 years will be similar? And what if not? The question is not only what skills you have, what technologies you have, what methods you have, what knowledge you have and experience. All of that is important. But the question is, how can you stay in your presence, contain a group of people who trust you because you're here, fully present. So let's start with experiments.
Hello and welcome to Let's Talk About Tech, your podcast on venture capital and private equity by Venionaire Capital, the entrepreneurial partners. Today with me is Professor Lukas Zenk from Danube University Krems. Great to have you.
Thanks for having me.
Lukas, you were driven by curiosity, by uncertainty, have had a mix in your journey from art to science to business. How did you become a professor?
Well, it's a long way, let's put it that way, and it was not my plan in the beginning. But I think curiosity was always something that was driven by me. And I think back when I was 13 years old, and I wrote in my journal like what I'm doing, and there was this brown-haired girl, and I was really, in love with her, and I thought about exams in schools and stuff, and I recognized that I know what happens in the whole year. But there were 2 weeks in summer, like a black hole, where I thought like, I don't know what will happen there. And in these 2 weeks, I decided to go to a sharing family in the UK. And it was the first vacation for me as a teenager to go somewhere abroad. I thought like, that is so amazing. That's so surprising for me because I do not know what will happen there. And I thought that's really interesting. And when I came to the UK and all the families picked up their children, I was the only one left over. And then the director said like, oh, sorry, but the family couldn't pick you up, but I will bring you there. And I thought like, it's adventure. So I like this curiosity and not knowing what will happen next.
So challenges in early days do not make you a professor immediately, right? Have you been extraordinarily smart in school?
I was the genius of the school. No, not at all. I think for me, it was always like in school, when I was passionate about something, I was like really good. It took me a while and was like, I was just, under average. But then if I'm really into something, I just want to understand it. And then I was getting better and better. But if I was bored, I was just really bad. So for example, French, before I started learning French, in some way before I said, oh, that's so cool, French, and I want to learn that. But then the teacher was so bad and it was so boring. And we just had to do the same thing over and over. And it was just like having a 4, so almost failing the class. So it was always like, if it's a challenge, if I'm really into that, then I'm getting better. If it's boring to me, I'm just really bad.
Now, I said in the introduction that you have had a mix between art, science, and business. So what is the art aspect of your life, and when does business come into play?
So let's start with the science part, because I just had the opportunity to go to university and said, I'll do that and start a scientific career. But at the same time, I was interested in being an actor. But the problem was that I cannot remember text. So if you give me text like what you did in introduction, I just can't. I mix it up. I do different things. It's not working. But then I found out there's improv theater. So you go on stage not knowing what will happen and then improvise. So you say one sentence after the other and something emerges out of nothing. So 15 years I was a semi-professional improv actor in Vienna, and we performed regularly. And that was amazing in many different aspects. And the business aspect is that I was always interested in consulting organizations. And over the time, I found out that science and arts and business, and especially consulting, is a really good mixture because I can provide organizations sometimes new aspects, how to deal, for example, with challenges, or how to be more creative, or how to develop a culture of innovation. And so over time, I understood that I like this analytical part in science. I like the supporting part, like consulting, but I also like the intuitive part, like arts and being creative.
That's a great mix. And I always say creativity is what makes the difference in consulting and in investment banking as well. So now today you are a professor for innovation, and this is not to be confused with a futurist, right? So you're in innovation research. What is this field of innovation research today?
Yeah, it's a broad field, and we often call it we dealing with real world problems. So we're not the researchers who are sitting somewhere hiding from society and real world problems. Rather, we work together with companies and ministries and the UN and different other institutions and see like what are big challenges in the society. And then we put together people, different disciplines in science and different people from practice. We call it transdisciplinarity. So we combine practice and science. And I would even put arts in there. And to try to understand complex problems. How can we understand what is going on in the world? And there we have a lot of different topics to tackle.
Obviously, and out of this, I would say, bandwidth of topics that we could choose, we're choosing the set of crises that we have seen, the polycrisis that has just happened. And we would frame our interview around leading in crisis. To start into this topic, managers and entrepreneurs different in tackling a certain crisis, a certain uncertainty when they're faced with it. Is there any difference? Are they acting the same or are they different?
From my perspective, these are very different positions, if you like, even personalities. So managers dealing with companies, even larger companies, and to have to steer, like a big ship, and you go through the Atlantic or wherever. So you have to understand how to stabilize the whole thing. And organizations are built for that the last 200 years to make something that you can expect what will happen tomorrow. So a big company will hopefully survive for the next years or decades. So managers are more like organizing a good routine that everything is working well, from my point of view. Leaders or entrepreneurs are very different. Especially in the beginning, it's more like a speedboat. They have to tackle other problems. It's never clear what is happening tomorrow, where you should pivoting and changing and adapting and collaborating. So it's much faster. And even if your company increases, you have to decide much faster. And so if you compare these two things, like let's say managers and leaders, or especially entrepreneurs, managers more like stabilizing things, and that's helpful. And leaders are more leading themselves and people to go to something new, to find the new land wherever that is.
There is this great saying of a great leader creates leaders. Would you agree to that?
Oh, totally. Because often managers try to control the things, stabilize that, and that's good and that's helpful. But if you're in an area or a branch of industry that is changing fast, like fintech or tech at all, it is changing so fast that it's not possible that you are the one person in an autocratic system that decides everything. What you want is to have other leaders, like even like not employees, but people with whom you co-create in that very moment. And that's a very different way to work than to delegate.
This sounds a little bit like your art background comes into play, right? So there is the managers that are following a plan, right? Everybody can expect what is going to happen, right? According to the plan. Maybe at the general and annual assembly, they say what will happen and will stay within these rails, right? Also to not have fluctuations unnecessarily happen on the stock exchange. While on the entrepreneurial side, if I listen to you correctly, there is more improvisation.
Very well put together. So we're close to Volkstheater here.
Mm-hmm.
And classical theater is really planned, extremely rehearsed. Every second is planned. The lights, what you're saying, and if you forget what you're saying, someone's saying like to be or not to be. So you really have to stick to the plan, and then you create a wonderful piece.
Mm-hmm.
That's more like management and planning. Improvising, you go on stage and you have no clue what happens. So you ask the audience, tell me a word. And then we say, thank you. The light goes off, it goes on, and you start playing, and you create a theater piece that you do not know in that very moment, and it can change in every second. So you have to train that. So it's similar, like they're both, acting, but it's a totally different way how you use your brain and your emotions, because once you have to remember and stick to the plan. And the other part is that you have to be here and now in this very moment and create what is now true and will not be true in a second later. So you have to learn and unlearn on the spot.
How do you teach your students, or how do you prepare your students to tackle a crisis better than others?
What I like about crisis is that you do not know what will happen.
Mm-hmm.
So Corona for me was fascinating. So how do companies, people, countries deal with something that they don't know? And what you have to do is you cannot plan for years. You have to reduce, your activity into short amounts of time. Like what can you do now, what you cannot do in a week or a week before. So you have to learn two things, I would say, to reduce the complexity. The one thing is being aware here and now. What is now possible? Like playing chess, there's now a possibility that you will not have in a minute later. And the other part is the north light. So what is the main purpose of you or your company that you are striving for? Not a plan, not like, not like a strict plan, but more like this is the vision where you want to go, but you're acting here now. And if you can differentiate that, having this northern star and being here now, I think that helps to go through crisis.
Okay, there's one concept we know quite well from growth hacking, the North Star metric, right? And anything you do within the company should follow or pay into that North Star metric. But then again, there is a lot of challenges, right? Where as a leader you are alone, right? Nobody helps you, right? How do you prepare for such an uncertain moment in loneliness?
Is it so?
It is.
So I would hope that some leaders open up to also get help and collaborate. So I would like rather co-leadership. Like in improv theater, there's not one leader who says like, we're going there. It's a co-leadership. Sometimes there's one person doing something and you help the person, and then immediately you change and the other person leads. Or I talked to a special forces military, Cobra in Austria, and they have also the co-leadership. So there's like typically 5 people going to a crisis, a sniper and some people rushing through the door. And there's one leader. And they go through that. But when they recognize this first team leader cannot see what happens behind that, but the sniper knows, then they switch, and suddenly the sniper leads them and say, go left, go right. And then they say, oh, now he's the leader, they switch again. So this would be one answer for what if leaders are co-leaders. And the other part is leading is not only leading others, but yourself. How can you be aware and sensitive of the market, of the resources, of the people right here and right now? And being clear that the plan that you had yesterday may not be helpful now.
It's interesting because I try to think a little bit of what I do in my day-to-day as an entrepreneur. And I honestly don't have a formula. I only know one thing, that the organizational structure of a company, as I've learned it in the books at university, did not make sense for me at all. And looking at any business that I've built, right, or that I support when they grow, I find them to be a holacracy. Not sure if you know what okay. So obviously, as a professor, you know, right?
I know everything, right?
So, and this concept basically sounds to me as a very crisis resilient concept, because you always have different leaders for different tasks, and it doesn't really matter where you are in certain levels within the company. It just matters that you have the right skill set at the moment, right? But this also determines that leaders have the right skill set to understand when to switch, right? And likely a whole different skill set in addition to learn. Is this a field in science that you look at?
Yeah. So, for example, it was studied jazz ensembles, and they call it minimal structure. So you have a minimal structure saying like, hey, what kind of genre do we play? Are you playing a piano? I had a guitar, whatever. But then in this minimal structure, it's a lot of autonomy. So we can explore and see what's happening. And some people say Holacracy, for example, and other forms, trying to have that, like a framework that is, some things are clear, but in there you have a lot of freedom. And I think this is exactly what you need. Some clear rules, but then a lot of freedom how to interact or act in this freedom. And there you need a lot of skills or even competences to see and hear what do you need next. What do you need next?
When we talked before the interview, you told me about the concept of exnovation versus innovation in order to adapt to crisis situations. What is exnovation?
Yeah. So most organizations want to have, the creative ideas, the new products, the innovation, but forget that they don't have the resources to do something more additionally. So what you need is to unlearn, to let go of things first, that something emerges what is new. So I went to a company and they wanted to create a new a startup event. It was really nice. And that's amazing. But they want to have something new. Like, okay, first of all, what do you want to let go? And they looked at me like, nothing, it's good. Like, yeah, but you can't do anything new if you just let go of anything. But no, we want to have something new, but not let go of something. And it was like a metaphor, like a glass of water. If the glass of water is completely full, like really, really full, and you think like it would be so nice to have orange juice in there, what do? You cannot pour just orange juice in there because then you have a mess. First of all, drink a sip of water or throw it away, let it go. And then you have space for something new. So exnovation first, and understanding the problem first, and then create in a new space, understanding the problem, the new solutions or innovations.
Now, for future crises, and I'm sure in this polycrisis, as I've learned, the multiple crises we call polycrisis that we have had, the next crisis is certain, right? Now, looking at the next crisis that will come, how can we prepare or envision, right, the future in the right way to tackle the next crisis and maybe take opportunities rather than challenges?
So I think like Corona was the one crisis that was, brought, and everyone was hit more or less by that. And the next years we understood like there's not one crisis and it's over and we're waiting for the next crisis, so to say. But there are multiple crises at the same time, and you just even don't know where to look at because it's so much at the same time. So the question is, how can you prepare for something that you do not know what is happening? And you can see that for crisis, but also for disruptive innovation, like artificial intelligence. We don't know what will happen next month or years, and we don't know what kind of crisis will emerge, but we're certain, and it's clear, new crisis coming. For example, Corona, there are about 70,000 zoonoses. That means viruses that could be infected from animals to humans. So there will be another, whatever kind of pandemic. We don't know which one. So how can we prepare people for a situation that we do not know now? And I think the concept of meta competences is nice for that. We don't only need specific competences like analytical thinking or math or specific kinds of IT. It's rather be prepared for something that we don't even know. So how can we train people to deal with uncertainty, although we don't know what kind of uncertainty or crisis or innovation will come up?
Is this something that has is there cultural differences in the world, right? Are Japanese people different than Europeans? Are North Americans different than South Americans?
Totally.
Okay.
So what I found so interesting, because we collaborate a lot with the US, and in science, you write a paper and submit it, and then you get a yes or no. And I work with some people in Harvard, and we submitted a paper there, and they got a rejection. And after 24 hours, they submitted in another journal. And I was like, no, that was fast. In Austria, typically, what we did is like, we were rejected. We say, oh, what? Oh, no, it happened. Oh, shit. So what we do, let's have a meeting next week. Let's talk about that. And you don't feel really good because they didn't accept you. And then it takes a month when you do it again. So I think we can learn not only from Americans in that way, but in this entrepreneurial spirit, you get a rejection and you start anew. And I think this thing, this unlearning and get up again, is something that you can really learn, especially in Europe or Austria. And we could do, if you like, a little exercise on that.
Sure.
Because talking about that is easy, but doing that is hard. And so in improv, we and it's called applied improvisation. So we don't think about theater, but like creating new skills. And it's called word at a time story. So we could try to tell a story, a fictional story, but I only say one word, and then you say a word, and I say a word, and we see what happens. So we can.
This is going to be extremely difficult for me. Only one word.
Yes, it will.
Okay.
Yeah,
I will try.
Because we can start with once upon a time and then see what happens. Now, when I say that, for other people's, the activity raises like, oh shit, what is happening? And how can we calm down that? Like whatever happened is fine. So what I'm doing right now is I prepare you that something will happen, and I tell you, between the lines, no matter what's happening, we just try it out. It's not about the outcome, it's about the approach.
Okay.
So I think what I'm doing right now, unconsciously, and I prime you a bit, also in organization, if you say like there's crisis and stuff, what if as a leader we say like, and we'll manage that, and we try our best, and we have our expertise and experience, and we go there, calm down people, because if you're relaxed and have less stress, then there's more creativity coming up.
Okay, let's try.
What is the topic of the story, or what is a name of the story? Do you have any?
Leading in crisis.
Leading in crisis. And we just see what's happening. If it's not so good, that the sentence is not a full one, we throw it away and try it again.
Okay.
So once
I
saw
a
new
manager
who
faced
a
crisis.
Wonderful. So this is a wonderful first sentence. What's the next sentence? He
approached
the
challenges
because
he
knew
there
is
an
end. Second sentence.
Opportunity, I would have said.
See, different than expected. Unlearn. Second sentence. Let's see what's happened next. So,
what
he
has
in
his
mind
might
be
valuable
for
you.
Oh, wonderful!
This is actually it's a great fun experience. Is this something people can try at home with ChatGPT?
Yes.
Yeah, or Mistral if you prefer the French
version. So what
version.
was interesting, I said, like, let's start with once upon a time. And you put me in an uncertainty because I said once, and I thought you say upon. But you said once I. Like, okay, he got me challenging. And that is fine. Now, what is interesting about that? If we start a story, we already think ahead. Like you said, oh, you thought opportunity. But I did something else. So you had to unlearn immediately. It's like, it's not what I thought, I'm here again. It's not what I thought, I'm here again. So this is what happens here is collaborating in real time, being co-creative. And we do not know what is happening next. And we're really curious about what's the one word that is coming. Oh, it's this coming? And I just say one word. It's not like the big business plan, one thing, and then you, and here, and here. Then we come in this flow, we co-create, we build up something that we didn't even know what will happen.
We call this concept Ping-Pong Development at Venionaire.
Really?
But it's not about words, right? It's about creating something new, right?
Yeah.
We know we're developing a new product. We're working on a slideshow to, make a certain point. And there's a lot of smart people working on this. And us as leaders, we sometimes don't know what it will look like and how we will actually make that point, right? So that it really clicks and the audience will love it, or stakeholders where we will present this. And this ping-pong development is something that is quite new to most people that start at Venionaire. Because they have not learned, right, this development one step after each other. They're used to getting a task, understanding the task, like in the military, right? You get a task, you repeat a task, you execute a task, and then you will understand if you have to do push-ups or not, right? But in business, it's a lot of ping pong, right? We develop this together, one step after the other. Very interesting concept. Now, back to ChatGPT.
Let's try it.
People at home can try that with ChatGPT as well. So what is the name of this concept, of this sentence building?
It's one word by time, the concept. But I prompt ChatGPT just with the audio. You can have different tools, but I tried out. It is not possible to do word by word yet. But it's possible with sentence by sentence. So I prompt ChatGPT what it should do, and then we'll see what happens.
So if you want to try that sentence by sentence creativity with AI, Professor Zenk actually says this works. Maybe you want to try it at home.
You increase the stakes. That's great. So I just open up ChatGPT and you... Hello, ChatGPT. I would like you to simulate a professional improv player who is aware of, for example, the hero journey and other storytelling parts. And I want to do an exercise with you. So you're telling one sentence of a story, and I'm telling one sentence of a story. And then we make up a story of about a minute or so and see what's happened. Are you ready to go for that? And by the way, the title will be Leading Uncertainty. Are you ready?
Absolutely. I'm ready. Let's start this improvisation. Once upon a time, in a land where uncertainty reigned, there was a brave explorer setting out on a journey.
He wanted to see a new land that he never discovered before.
With a map in hand and courage in his heart, he ventured into the unknown, where mysteries awaited at every turn.
But suddenly he recognized that the map is not really the things that he sees in land. There's something of a difference.
Realizing this, he decided to trust his instincts and let them guide him through the ever-changing landscape.
Throwing away the maps, he just explored the nature and the new country, and he saw animals he never saw before.
Along the way, he encountered a wise old owl who offered cryptic advice about the path ahead.
And the moral of the story that the owl says is the following.
The greatest discoveries come from embracing the unknown, the owl said, and trusting in yourself.
Thank you very much for this wonderful co-created story.
This is actually not only a wonderful artificial intelligence driven co-creating story, it's also wonderful closing words, right? I hope you guys enjoyed this episode about creativity, curiosity, a little bit of improv, and try this at home, work a little bit with ChatGPT, explore your own creativity, and tune in for the next episode.